What's your relationship like now with social media? Because you kind of rely on it in a way, right?
Yeah, it's I do rely on it. It's I guess, for lack of a better term, my shop front. It's the way people see my stuff to come and check me out. I'm definitely struggling with a bit of an addiction to it. It's as typical a addictive dopamine hit as like a cigarette or a any kind of other addiction hit would be for me. I crave it when I wake up in the morning, and if I sit too deep in it, I will start to feel terrible, and I know that I need to maintain a distance from it because it'll just ruin my day.
Is it the scrolling you're addicted to, or is it the public response to your content?
Both, everything, and social media is a one-stop shop for all of it. For every kind of dopamine hit that you want. You want funny videos? Tick. You want sport? Tick. You want people actively engaging with the elements of your personality that you've put on the internet? Tick as well. So yeah, it's all of it, and it's all in one place.
Welcome back to The Last Days of Rome. In today's episode, I speak with comedian Anthony Locascio. With Anthony, we talk about therapy, his views on comedy, what it was like to perform in London, and where he hid the bodies of 2 backpackers in... We've cut that... Okay, so just the stuff about therapy and comedy. Enjoy it. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Ray. This is awesome.
I've watched quite a few interviews with you and read some as well, and it's pretty obvious that you're a very introspective and thoughtful person. Have you always been that way?
Yeah, definitely. I was one of those typical, like, strange, neurotic children in the corner, you know? Just like pile of tissues everywhere. Just a textbook that had just doodles in it, and just wondering why things were the way they were. So I guess so.
Are you still that way?
Yeah.
You feel like
for the most part.
Still wondering?
With a bit more hyperactivity, I think, a little bit more, and kind of adult obligations. So yeah.
Are you in therapy? Do you mind me asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like right now, at this given moment?
Yeah.
No, I sacked my therapist recently.
Really?
Yeah, and I've done this quite a few times, because
They couldn't help you with your commitment issues?
I don't respond well to the kind of therapy that is, I just play the hits of my life and the person just nods and then repeats back to me what I said to them, and then I pay them $300. I need somebody to say, hey, you're a narcissist. Stop doing 1, 2, 3, 4 things.
Interesting. Okay. Well, do you actually think you're a narcissist, first of all? Or do you think you have narcissism?
I think I definitely, yeah, of course.
All right, we'll come on to that in a second. What do you want from therapy then? What would you rather, so you're looking for explicit instructions? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think I'm more looking for a coach. Like a guy in the boxing corner to be like, you're taking too many hits to the head, kid. You gotta...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
You don't want that?
No, I don't like that.
What do you want?
I think what I look for, I've had the same analyst for like 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. I think I'm looking for someone to just kind of relate to, or to maybe we're getting into too much, psychoanalytic babble here, but like occupy the voice of the other for me. So be we all have another, the way we sort of interpret the world. And the job of the psychoanalyst is to personify the other.
It's like it's the Tony Soprano way of thinking. You want somebody to enable your toxicity rather than try to stem it.
Maybe, but also in a way, like, we all have maybe an inner critic that can be quite harsh, and often that's because we've internalized the harsh voices of other people, and so maybe the job of the analyst is instead to occupy that space with a kinder voice, I don't know. All right, let's come back to you. Do you really think you have narcissistic traits?
Definitely. But I think most people do, especially of our generation and below. I think when our kind of adult identities were developing when social media was becoming a thing where you have to create a MySpace or a Facebook or a whatever profile that is, this is all of the really special things about me. This is how I'm unique and special in the world. And when every single person in the world is doing these, well, not every single person, but when most people that you know are doing this kind of thing, it kind of fosters a little bit of a, I'm special, I matter in some way.
What's your relationship like now with social media? Because you kind of rely on it in a way, right?
Yeah, it's I do rely on it. It's I guess, for lack of a better term, my shop front. It's the way people see my stuff to come and check me out. I'm definitely struggling with a bit of an addiction to it. It's as typical a addictive dopamine hit as like a cigarette or a any kind of other addiction hit would be for me. I crave it when I wake up in the morning, and if I sit too deep in it, I will start to feel terrible, and I know that I need to maintain a distance from it because it'll just ruin my day.
Is it the scrolling you're addicted to, or is it the public response to your content?
Both, everything. And social media is a one-stop shop for all of it. For every kind of dopamine hit that you want. You want funny videos? Tick. You want sport? Tick. You want people actively engaging with the elements of your personality that you've put on the internet? Tick as well. So yeah, it's all of it, and it's all in one place.
There's this guy I like online. He's written a book about this very subject, and his main point in the book is that we now use social media as the primary way to create an identity. He calls it prophylicity.
Yeah.
And so if you were to look at your own online presence, your own profile, what do you think you would see? Like, what are you trying to curate, do you think?
First of all, I love that, and I can definitely empathize and agree with that. I have done my utmost in the last little while to make my social media purely this is not a character, but this is a stand-up comedian. I put elements of my personal life on there, but only stuff that I think will add to the kind of you need to give an audience a piece of yourself. I always try and do that in my shows, but only in limited doses. So I'm not putting every single thing that I do on social media.
Right.
If I see something funny or I think something funny, I'll pop it up on the story or something. But otherwise, it's stand-up clips, stupid little videos that I've put together, or like a life update.
Right.
But I try to not have it, because I did for a long time.
Use it very personally?
I used it as exactly as you say. It was like my social media personality was feeding my actual personality.
And that's everyone, right? That's not like something about you specifically.
Yeah. 100%. And I was able to realize that and fix it.
Yeah.
Because that sucks.
If you care too much about it or spend too much time on it, absolutely. It can also provide insight, right? So I can look at my profile from years ago and with perspective, understand what I was trying to broadcast. So there are all these photos of me traveling or whatever. So clearly I was trying to, at the time, broadcast that I travel. I'm therefore an interesting person, a worldly person or whatever. And so you kind of get insight into what was important to you at the time to,
Sure. The what is something that you can glean, but the why is always the same. The why is always, please love me.
Yeah.
Please give me attention. Please think that I'm important today, irrespective of what it is that you're putting up there.
But you're saying you still kind of have that now.
I have to, though.
Yeah.
I have to. I would love to get to a point where I don't need it, but I can't see that happening anytime soon. And it's it sounds like I'm complaining.
No.
Social media has given people such as myself a platform and a way to, can I swear?
Absolutely.
To live out my dream. Like,
you didn't even swear.
Yeah, but the moment was gone. The catapult.
My bad.
Was taken. No. It's all right. It'll come. I've been doing comedy for 7 years, and I'm doing shows.
Really? 7 years?
Yeah.
Jesus. When did you start selling tickets? At what point?
1 year.
My God.
Sorry, you know what?
God.
It wasn't 1 year. Call it 2 years.
Right.
But I came into it. To be a comedian was going to be my escape from my previous life. I was an insolvency lawyer, and I hated every second of my life, and I had always wanted to be a comic. And I just, as a second generation Australian with Greek and Italian parents, there was never going to be a chance that hey, I want to go into the arts was going to fly for me, until I had just hated everything else that I was doing. And so that was going to be my escape. But I said, I'm not going to get into comedy to see if it's going to work. I'm going to get into comedy to be a comic. Fuck it. Let's see how it goes. And part of that plan was, before I had ever gotten on stage, I had written an hour, or what I thought was an hour. And I was speaking to people like, hey, where can I do my hour? And they're like, you shouldn't be doing an hour within a year. What are you talking about?
You had never even done a mic at this point, or?
Never done a mic at this point.
And you've been written
the hour. I'd never done a mic at this point. Now, you having been a comic, having still self-identifying?
Nah, not really.
Not really?
I'm struggling with that, but
okay. That's the conversation for another time. And me as a comic of 7 years now, if anybody said to me before getting on stage, I've written an hour, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Don't. What are you talking about? You have no idea what you're in for. But at the time, I didn't know. And I would go to open mics and I would do well, and I would say to people, how do you move up? Like, I'm kind of in a rush here because I need to get out of this life. And they just say, dude, it has nothing to do with how well you do, how funny you are. You just got to hang back and have beers with the boys, and then we know those bookers, and they'll put you on this show, and then they know those bookers, and all you got to do is just be a good hang, and you'll be fine. And that didn't fly with me. So I rented out a theater, 400-person theater. I got a good friend of mine to film it, and I invited people for free. I gave out tickets to people and said, come, and then here's a second ticket for somebody that doesn't know me. I performed the hour. I'd been doing comedy for 5 months. The worst form of torture would be to sit me in front of any clips from this show. But 2 of them somehow went on YouTube and did very, very well.
You didn't post them?
I did post them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did post them. And I posted all of them.
Sorry, when you said somehow, I thought you meant somehow they ended up on YouTube.
Somehow, in as far as qualitatively, they did not deserve to go that far.
Right.
They are shit. They are, as you would expect any 5-month comic to do. But they were speaking about my ethnicity, and you speak about your ethnicity, people's ears prick up if they are of the same persuasion. And that was enough to give me a small audience and a blueprint. Every year I wrote a new hour. And every year at the same time, I would do the new hour and I would start charging money for it. And slowly, the audience would build, the skill would build. At a certain point, I like to hope that my ability caught up with my bravado, my ambition, I don't know what you'd call it. And here we are. But there's been some real embarrassments along the way.
Like what? Just bombing or?
Everyone bombs.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
Sure.
That's part of it. But there's stuff on the internet that I would love to have expunged from existence.
Oh, dude.
That has been instrumental in getting me to where I am, which is nowhere spectacular. But I'm doing shows internationally now. I'm touring all the time, and so coming back to your initial question, social media has given me the ability to live out my dream in a way that comedians previously never had. If you didn't get through whatever gatekeeper you needed to, if you didn't impress the right person at the right time, you could be slogging it out for a really long time, fruitlessly. Your belief in yourself, your only friend, and a lot of people did that for a long time. And I don't know if I would have had that endurance, you know?
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, but I think that I had that horrible relationship with social media from well before I became a comic anyway. At least after becoming a comic, I had the inbuilt excuse of, well, I'm using this to build something here, as opposed to just being X person who lives on social media and it's not their career.
Right. You've just briefly touched on this, but I'll ask you again. So the clips that you would want to delete, they had to do with your ethnicity. You didn't think they deserved to go as far as they did. And I know you've spoken in the past about your kind of inner struggle with, I guess, embracing your cultural heritage on the one hand, but then also not wanting to be pigeonholed. You don't have to relitigate that entire thing again because you've spoken about that elsewhere, but where are you at with that today?
The best place I've ever been.
Nice.
Genuinely. I've gone really far this way and lent into the super ethnic kind of this is the crux of my work, and I've gone super this way and kind of completely whitewashed and sanitized myself, and I don't like either extremity. If your ethnicity, as you know, we only just met, but I'm sure given that you work here and you do that, I'm sure your ethnicity is a major part of your identity, but it's not the only component. And to ignore it for the sake of creating something, you're doing your own journey of self-discovery a complete disservice. But to make it the only focus is also doing your journey, your writing, a disservice. So throw it all in the washing machine. If everything goes pink, okay. I only think that I'm considered part of that scene by virtue of my background anyway, right? I'm really, really good friends with all those guys. And they have, early on in my career, they gave me great opportunities and I love them all. But if any of them want me to open for them or whatever,
you're there.
I'm there. Having said that, no, I think I'm only considered as part of that bracket just because I am Italian and Greek. If I am going to be considered an ethnic comedian, WOG comedian, no problem. I'm happy to be. I love my people. I'm happy to be an avatar for them. But let's do something different. Let's see if we can push the things we talk about to a new level while keeping it on theme.
Right.
Yes.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm not understanding you, but it sounds like maybe you're striving to make the genre more three-dimensional. Would that be fair?
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it that I didn't have the balls to put it. I mean, I'm really, really interested in where so-called WOG culture sits in contemporary Australia, because depending on where you sit, we are just white people, or we are like Con the Fruiterer, you know what I mean? And I almost feel like that answer is tied in with how traditional WOG values intersect with progressive ideals in a modern Australia. I feel like both of them go hand in hand.
Flesh that out for me. What do you mean?
So, okay, I don't know the answer to these questions that I'm posing, and I really would like to know, because there have been times where I have been told I'm just another straight white comedian, and there are times where I've been told I am the WOG comedian, and I don't really feel like either of those things. And I also feel like if you are to box yourself in as any of those things, you kind of have to adhere to certain philosophies and ways of thinking that are associated with those kinds of people. Like the typical thinking around the WOG dad, you want to come out to your WOG dad as non-binary or trans or gay or whatever. There is kind of a well-trodden way of thinking that it's like that would be terrifying,
right,
as compared to if you had, white Australian parents. And I don't understand that.
So there's this assumption that maybe our values are less progressive, more backward, that sort of thing.
Yeah, less progressive and more backward, and perhaps somewhat frozen in time at a point of our grandparents or wherever or whoever it was is immigration, and you can't have it both ways. You can't be we're just white people but we're also these backwards people.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. To be honest with you, and maybe you felt the same way, growing up, I thought I wasn't white. It wasn't actually until I was 23 living in the States that someone for the first time called me a white guy.
Yeah.
Because in Australia, white tends to mean Anglo.
That's right.
You know, it's a very narrow definition of white. So it can be kind of confusing in the context of identity, like how we see ourselves. But do you also feel maybe in the context of comedy, we don't do ourselves any favors? Because that material, right, like coming out to your world, that's done. Like it's not Anglo-Australians who do that to us. It's us, right? No, I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but
you're in trouble. But yeah, you're right, because okay, I think by virtue of being WOG's subculture, the very first subculture in Australia to feature prominently within the media as protagonists, WOG's out of work, Acropolis now,
right,
blah, blah, blah. There had never been non-white Australian main characters in anything ever. The only way, and it's happened historically in most English-speaking countries, the way for subgroups to pierce through is through comedy, because you reveal yourself to be disarming, you reveal yourself to be part of the gang, everyone's comfortable with you because you are funny, and that's your way through. But I think by virtue of being the sled dog on that front, our diversity is always seen through the medium of fun. When we're to be made fun of, we're Sushi Mango, we're Con the Fruiterer, we are that. But
we have to be clowns.
We have to be clowns. But when we're to be taken seriously, no, we've already got a white guy on the project. We've got Peter Hellier. We don't need Ray. We're fine, right? Because I had the exact same experience that you were talking about. I never thought I was white, and then an American comic said it to me, and I'm like, I suppose so. And racially, we are white. You know, if you consider like on a global scale, we are.
That's a new thing though, because whiteness changes. I mean, Italians weren't considered white even in the US decades ago. The Irish weren't white. Yeah. The whitest of the whites, the Irish, weren't considered white. So as a concept, it's changed. And now I feel like we live in a particular time where we're just we've just crossed the threshold, and it's kind of done something to the way we see ourselves.
Yes.
Confused us perhaps.
Yes. But your point before is something that is really salient to me. Comedy is really important. Comedy is a lot more important than I think I give it credit for sometimes, by just being like I make a lot of dick jokes. So in that regard,
it's got to be done.
It's got to be done. But comedy is important because it's a really interesting magnification of who we are as people. And WOG comedy, in its perhaps refusal to evolve too much, I think it might have contributed to a force field around how a big part of our group of people view themselves. I don't know if that's what you were getting at before.
No, it absolutely, it's all related. I really promised myself coming into my conversation with you that I wouldn't impose myself too much. But I'm gonna. But you've just said something that, okay. The thing is though, is it that or is it the other way around? Because it's the audience also dictates what creative people do. I mean, you spoke before about gatekeepers, and I've mentioned before in another episode, the algorithm is a new gatekeeper, right? Yeah. And so that content goes places. And so the fact that it does kind of pressures comedians into, playing the hits, for lack of a better phrase, and to just keep giving their base red meat. Even like our videos, I mean, we touch on a range of topics. Nothing gets as many views or likes as Joe Avardi talking about Italians yelling or something. That's what gets all the clicks and views.
You're so right. And Kate, like the live example of that is when I was first starting out, like I mentioned, George, Joe, James, I would do shows with them. They would give me a small spot as the kind of new guy. And I was determined to not be a Joe Avardi tribute act.
Right.
I was determined to not go in there like okay, this is even though I'm heavily influenced by Joe, I was watching him when I was fucking 12, man. I didn't want to just be, okay, we're going to do this. But if I tried to deviate from talking about my ethnicity to these particular audiences, you're hearing crickets, man. You can't do it. And they get a lot of people there. Bombing in front of 800 people is not nice. And I eventually learned to stick to the formula in those contexts. But Joe sat me down and had a great conversation with me a little while ago about thinking about comedy in more of a business sense, in that kind of a way.
Yeah.
And
that sounds like very Joe. He's very much a
totally. He said to me, I'm not even sure if he's gonna like me saying this in a public forum, but he said to me, "You're a comedian. I'm a guy in the business of comedy. You have to learn the difference between this." And that has echoed in my head for a long time. And I like to kind of straddle the line between the two now. But I understand more and more as I go on what he meant by that. I can go and open for Joe Vardy to 4,000 people at the Palais, and I can do half an hour of material that is exclusively about my ethnicity, because I know that they're there to see Joe and that's what they like. And it's not like this material is not reflective of who I am as a human being. And if they like me as a person, they can come and see my show. And if they come and see my show, they will see something different to that. They will not see an hour of me just talking about my ethnicity.
Will they like that?
If they do, great. If they don't, then I was never going to be for them anyway. I appreciate your time, I appreciate your money, and we'll never see each other again, and that's fine.
Right. That makes total sense. I think I've always been skeptical that the sort of the ethnic comedy fans, this is just my view, and maybe you'll disagree, tell me if you think I'm wrong, they're not comedy fans. They don't care about comedy. They want to go there. And I've spoken about this before, so apologies if I'm being repetitive to people who have listened, to the 7 people who watch the show. They're just there to see the ethnic stuff. And I do feel like if I put myself in your shoes, I wonder if I'm playing to a crowd that just aren't interested in the other stuff and will never be interested in the other stuff, because part of, let's say, doing really good stand-up, stuff that you and I would agree is good, whatever that means, involves playing with the form, playing with the medium of stand-up. You can't do that to the ethnic comedy crowd. You can't, because they don't watch stand-up. They don't really watch it. They're not familiar with it. And so you have to, I feel like you kind of get stuck simplifying yourself in a way. Am I being too pessimistic?
No. And what you're talking about is something that I've battled with, definitely. But let me put this to you. Have you at any point in your life been a fan of wrestling?
No.
Okay.
When you say wrestling, as in like WWE?
WWE, yeah. Okay. So I'm a huge fan of wrestling, even to this day, shamelessly. Now, the business model for wrestling is predicated on getting the casual fans in the door, because the hardcore fans are going to be there regardless.
Right.
Okay. It's a way to get the people, maybe even like yourself. Maybe I'll bring you to a wrestling show and you'll fall in love. I highly doubt it at this point. But
I'm open.
But there's an element of the pageantry and the music and the men wearing no pants fighting over a belt. There's just so much to like about it that anybody might hook onto. But the hardcore fans, they are there because they are wrestling purists and they love the form, and they'd watch any kind of wrestling across the world, doesn't matter what it is. They, from a business perspective, they're not who you're trying to convince to come through the door. So I put this to you. WOG comedy fans are not real comedy fans, are not comedy fans. Fine. I would bet that the vast majority of people that go and see Chris Rock are not comedy fans.
Right.
They like Chris Rock because maybe they have an ethnic tether to him, or maybe they saw him on The Longest Yard and they thought he was great and they go and see him.
They're attracted to the celebrity.
Who knows what it might be, but they're not comedy fans. In fact, I would wager, especially in this country, the pure comedy fans that go to comedy because they love comedy are very few and far between. If you are a comedian in this country, in order to be successful, you generally have to be that person from that thing. The biggest comedians in this country that do stand-up, you've seen them somewhere else. They're on the radio, they're on TV, they're doing something. Or they're a viral TikTok sensation, which is a new way to be that guy from that thing. But that's how you talk people into the door. It's with a different thing. People go and see Jimmy Carr. I'm sure people would see Jimmy Carr and no one else. The people that you're talking about, yeah, this year we're going to go see Joe Vardy and that's it. And next year we're going to see Effie and that's it. And then the third year, Joe will be touring a new show. So we'll go see Joe again. We don't see anybody else. So our frequencies are not in tune with the style of comedy. We just like Joe and we like Effie and then we like George and that's totally fine. It's my job as a comic to try and learn how to speak to all people. Tonight will be the first of my solos that you would have come to, right? I think you'll see what I mean in this, but you kind of, using social media, you kind of have to Trojan horse yourself. So I think most people that would view my social media would very easily consider me as part of that ethnic comic bracket. Because as you say, if you talk about your ethnicity, that's the stuff that's going to get the views because it's a very simple way in. And I will, in all of my shows, I've learnt my lesson. I will make sure to put enough snacks around for people that like that specific kind of comedy while getting away with doing what I actually want to do. And the degree to which I am successful or unsuccessful is honestly a night-to-night thing, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, nice. So... Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you write, by the way? Are you writing every day? Are you a prolific writer?
Am I a prolific writer? I'm not a consistently prolific writer, but when it's time, I get down to business. At the moment, I'm blocking out a day to go to a cafe with a notebook, leave my phone at home, a notebook, and then a fiction novel and a non-fiction novel, and I just write whatever it is. If I get stuck, I will just describe what's going on around me in as much detail as I can. If I hit another blockade, I will read a chapter of my fiction novel, I'll read a chapter of the non-fiction novel, and I'll just get back to it, and I'll sit there with coffee for about 6 to 8 hours.
When you're, let's say, in a state of flow, though, what does that look like? Are you writing just jokes, or are you writing like premises to bits? What does the actual material look like?
I try to not. I used to try and structure it and make it all premises to bits and trying jokes and stuff. But now I will stream of consciousness, almost like a meditation journal, and things will just come. And you go through afterwards, and when you read back, and if there's funny stuff, you extract it and you put it into a document, and then you kind of. I had set myself the goal of producing an hour every year, and I kind of have that mentality of I'll book in the gigs, I'll book in the festival spots, I'll pay my rego, and that will force me to have my show ready by that point.
So it's the pressure.
The pressure is motivating, and the closer it gets to the date, the more motivated I'll feel. This is the first time that I've decided to not do that. I love the current show that I'm running so much that I'm happy to not dispense with it after a year. I'm going to keep pushing it as far as I can. I'm getting married next year.
Congratulations.
Which seems like a great idea. A lot of smart people are doing that from what I hear. And I just want to focus on that and give myself the 2-year period to write something potentially better.
Yeah, nice. I mean, you mentioned you registered for the comedy festival. What's that process like? Is that something you enjoy? Because some people say it's a bit of a nightmare. Do you get much out of it? I mean, would the goal at some point be to be big enough or whatever where you no longer need the comedy festival and you can tour without it?
You're talking specifically about the Melbourne Comedy Festival?
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to never do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The last 3 years I've done the festival gamut. I've done Adelaide Fringe, Sydney, Perth, Brisbane comedy festivals, and the Melbourne International Comedy Festival every single year. And it is a grind, but it's cool. It's cool to hang out in different cities and get to know different people. I really, really love that element of this work. But you're paying quite a bit for a festival registration fee. You are paying the deals that you cut with the venues that host your show are different depending on which venue it is, but there's still a cost involved there.
You say some of them are predatory, some of those deals?
100%. And I have had my carcass chewed on more times than I care to admit. You have to do Facebook marketing. You have to put money into ads. There's no other way to do it. In previous years, I've spent money on posters and flyers, which I consider now a completely archaic and useless form of marketing. And then you have to contend with the fact that in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival specifically, there's about 700 other shows that people can go and see. Now, why would you do that? Because when you're a lesser known artist, by being involved in the festival, you gain a measure of credibility, and that can help a lot. It's a good time, especially Melbourne during the comedy festival is amazing. I love it so much. You can't escape comedy.
There's a buzz.
People are into it, and like you talk to punters that are going to 3-4 shows a night. You'd be lucky to find people in Sydney that go to 3-4 shows a lifetime. Right. It's a totally different where I'm from. And I find that, and they know how to be audience members, they're experienced. It's wonderful. But I'm at a point now where I don't think I need that. I have been doing it over the last few months where I've been coming off season to different places, tonight included. And it's nice that I don't have to compete with anybody. Bums on seats. It's nice there. It's nice to not have to pay a rego fee. It's nice to just be my own band. The other thing that is appealing about participating in the comedy festival is that there is a select group of comics who will be given preferential treatment and come under a little bit more of a microscope by the comedy festival itself. And if they perform well, they get TV opportunities and different kind of showcase opportunities and ways to progress their career in a different way that every comic would love to have. And yeah, you want to give it a crack.
Is that because they're with a particular agency?
No. There could be many reasons. It could be because they're a particular agency. It could be because they fit a particular demographic profile that is appealing. It could be because they have a ridiculously good show. It could be because they have a ridiculously unique story as a human being, and you know, people find that really appealing. It could be any of those things, and that's cool. That's really cool. But it's hard to be that.
Right.
You know, it's hard to break through that.
So overall, you'd say it's a good launching pad, but it's one that you probably it's not really financially worth your while anymore to engage with.
The Melbourne one, yeah. Sydney Comedy Festival I'll probably keep doing because I don't have to pay for flights and accommodation for that one.
That helps.
And also, the Melbourne is the only Australian comedy festival that you're encouraged to run the gamut and do a 4-week run where you're performing pretty much every single night for 4 weeks. Right. I've never done the full month. I've only done, this year I did 14 shows across 2 weeks.
Just still tons.
It's tons. It's the Edinburgh model. In Edinburgh, it's the same thing. That the Edinburgh Fringe, you do a month. Every other comedy festival, you got a week. You got 3 shows, 4 shows, and that's it.
Have you done Edinburgh?
No. I went a month ago, and it's... Oh, did you ever do it?
I never did it. I've heard it's brutal. It never appealed to me.
Yeah. I've heard it's brutal as well. But having been there, I was just there for a couple of days. It's amazing.
Right.
I'd go as a fan. I'd go as a person looking for a fun week.
What's different about it compared to Melbourne?
It's because it is like during the Melbourne Comedy Festival, yes, you cannot escape that there's a comedy festival on, but people are still going about their days. Like life doesn't stop for the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. It does for Edinburgh. In Edinburgh Fringe, there is nothing going on in that beautiful city. It's gorgeous. That is not somehow Fringe related. the pubs and the restaurants and the cafes are all open for the Fringe. Most venues there are a Fringe venue or a Fringe affiliate venue, and it's just chocked full of tourists that have come from all around the world specifically to see the Fringe. It's like an adult Easter show. It's amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You performed in London recently.
Yeah, I did my solo in London.
How'd that go?
Awesome, man. Awesome. I could not have gone better.
Nice.
I sold well. By virtue of most of my audience being Aussie expats, the material was not flying over anybody's head. I tried to translate it to make it a little bit more UK based, but it's just like I asked if there were Aussies in the crowd before, and enough of them were there that I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna press play on the show
Right.
as is.
Did you try doing like a smaller room there?
I did a 150 seater.
No, but I guess what I mean is, apart from your show, did you pop up to do an open mic or something?
I tried, but there's a weird thing that happens in London. First of all, we were only there for 4 days, but there's a weird thing that happens in London during the Edinburgh Fringe where all of the really, really big comics go to Edinburgh, and so you'd think that there'd be a vacuum and you'd be able to get spots easily. But all of the bottom-feeding open mic comedians just kind of come out of the woodwork and take up all those spots immediately. So I tried, and I was offered a couple on one night that we had tickets to a musical. So I just thought, I've done my solo.
Would have been interesting to see.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I've only ever done spots in Malaysia.
How'd that go?
Australia.
All expats as well in the crowd?
No.
Okay.
No. Very few actually. I did 3 spots, and the you've been to Malaysia, so you know the
I should tell you, I was 10. So
you're still a human.
yeah, I suppose. Barely.
You know, the ethnicity split in Malaysia is very, it's here's the Malaysian Chinese, there's the Malaysian Indians, and here's the kind of ethnic Malays.
Right.
And there is a kind of socioeconomic hierarchy to those people, and so the more, like, I did a gig at a uni, and I did a gig at an arts center, and then I did a gig at the Kuala Lumpur Comedy Club, and the demographics of the audience were different in each place, depending on how much the tickets were. Like the comedy club itself was pretty much all Malaysian Chinese. The student one was a lot of kind of the Muslim ethnic Malays. However, and this is I'm making a lot of mental leaps by saying this, but I just got the impression that there was a concerted effort and feeling within the crowd on every single show that I did. We're going to have a good time.
Right.
Which you don't get that often in Australia. I think Australians' lives are generally too good. And so sometimes they come to comedy like, all right, what do you got, clown?
There's an expectation that you have to get to work and earn your laugh.
That's right. Whereas over there, it was like, everyone was like, this is great.
Right.
Who are you? Let's go.
They felt that they had to contribute to the vibes?
No, I wouldn't go that far, but there was no hesitation to just, oh, that's the joke? Haha.
Right.
Good for you.
That sounds awesome.
I did make an effort to, so I went in and I would do 5 minutes talking about KL for each time. My partner's Malaysian Chinese, so I had a little bit of like ammo going in.
Right.
I made fun of Kuala Lumpur a little bit, and they're like, yeah, that's true. And then once I had broken the ice with them, I just did my normal stuff.
Right. And that went down okay?
Yeah, totally. You know Andrew Schultz?
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz, before he became massive, he came and did a show in Sydney at the Factory, and he was talking to this group of Indian lads in the front row. If you were of a particular mindset, you might say what he was saying was racist. And I actually heard him on a podcast talking about the exact show a couple of days later. And he said, yeah, man, you know, maybe, but there's the kind of racism that is predicated on stereotypes that are born out of fear. I'm not going to repeat any of them now. You know what I'm talking about. And then there's talking about race that might not be your race, where you show the people that you have spent time with people of their ethnicity, that you care about the different dynamics of their ethnicity and that you really listen and you know about them, where you're part of the family now. You're in on the, like, you care, you get it. And that is the nicest thing ever. And I've always had that in the back of my mind. So going into KL, I'm like, look, I'm about to become a de facto Malaysian. Right. I know I'm not just any Aussie coming here. I know what this means and that means, and I'm going to make fun of it because I love you people. And if you have that energy, great.
And it sounds like they took it really well. So it worked.
They did.
That would be great, becoming like a Malaysian celebrity. You could be Malaysia's Arj Barker. That would be so sweet.
Yeah. From a monetary point of view, perhaps not. But
you don't reckon? Isn't it a bigger population than Australia? Or am I way off there? Either way, KL's a bigger city than any city.
It is. Do you know Dr. Jason Leong?
I don't.
Okay, Dr. Jason Leong is one of the biggest Malaysian comedians. He's a good friend of mine. He's got 2 Netflix specials. He makes all his money in Australia.
Oh man,
comes here and he absolutely kills it at the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
But that could be because he's not Australian. That might have something to do with it.
Whereas Malaysians and Singaporeans that live here that come and see him.
Right, but if you went over there as the sort of international act, that could be profitable. I don't know. So now I've got my Joe Avadi hat on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like a businessman, which I'm a terrible businessman.
Yeah. You're preaching the choir, brother. Yeah, maybe, but then I might be. It might be the hero's journey in reverse, whereby I pigeonhole myself even when I come to Australia.
Right.
I become the WOG guy that does comedy.
Just embrace it.
Yeah,
just embrace it.
Bring it on.
You know, get paid. This is also like something that I've seen you speak about. But can you just quickly tell me the story? Like you got assaulted on stage.
Oh yeah. I did. I got punched. Well, sort of. I had a punch thrown at me. Yeah. Abridged version or long version?
I mean, whichever you want to give, man.
Okay. I was doing a gig in 2019. I was being heckled pretty heavily. I had been heckled pretty heavily in that exact room the night before by a person in that exact seat. It was a lady. I tried my best to deal with it in a friendly way. She was properly like disrupting the show. I said something pretty unsavory to her, and her boyfriend, who had been enjoying my set up until that point, just charged up on stage, took a swing. I blocked. He kind of grazed my cheek. Security took him out, and that was the end.
That was the end?
I mean, I finished my set.
Did you press charges?
No. Although I did get a name because the woman wrote a Yelp review about the comedy show the next day. So I got a name.
What a dumb decision.
Yeah.
If your boyfriend hit someone. 1 star.
1 star. Yeah, we got 1.
You should have tried to leave your own review of the punch, because the punch sounded pretty 1 star as well.
Yeah, it was
just a graze.
It was. Look, I'll give it 2. Also, I kind of had to allow it to happen because comedian half volleys punter's head into the top right-hand corner from the stage doesn't quite have the same ring to it as a BuzzFeed headline.
Yeah, true.
So that happened.
Were you upset about that for quite some time? Like, what was the sort of emotional reaction to that? It's pretty violating as well, right?
In the short term afterwards, I was like, that's hilarious. That's great. I was only upset that no one filmed it because I could have just Jim Jeffries that shit. But for a few days after that, I felt, a little violated. Kind of scared that there's a inherent quality to me as a person that would make somebody want to do that.
So you started to blame yourself?
Yeah, of course. And not about like what material you're doing or what jokes, just the energy of a person. You know, these are things that I believe in. And I was wondering. It was one of the times. There's been many a time, but it was one of the times where I've most strongly felt, hey, there may be an inherent quality within you, the human being, that will prevent you from doing this the way you want to do it, which is bullshit.
What got you over that? Just that thought? It's bullshit?
Sertraline?
Sertraline?
Yeah.
What is that?
Antidepressant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's good shit. Also, I'm. There have been so many times where I'm like, I'm going to quit,
Yeah.
but I never do.
Quit stand-up?
Quit stand up, yeah. I never do. I'm in this now. But that was the strongest. Like you can bomb, and you're supposed to bomb, and it hurts. And there can be moments where you're like, okay, maybe I don't have what it takes comedically to do it, but you can out hard work that. But when somebody throws a punch at you, I don't know. Have you ever been punched?
Not in that sort of context.
You've been punched in the playground? You've been punched
Yeah,
in soccer?
or in I used to do a little bit of like martial arts, so like in that context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was a very introspective week for me. What are you going to do?
What's interesting to hear is that despite all of your success, you still have those moments of, I guess, self-doubt. Are they becoming fewer and further between, or
Yeah.
the same?
Yeah, they are. But mostly it's nothing to do with, and I appreciate you saying that, but I'm perhaps getting better at exhibiting success to the
People buy tickets to your shows.
Yeah,
that's
you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
I won't be ungrateful for that. It's less about receiving any kind of validation. It's more about not caring about things that I gave way too much airtime within my head.
right.
Doesn't matter what any other comedian thinks of you if you perform in one particular room. Another comedian will never buy tickets to your show. It doesn't matter what potential booker or agent might be in the room at that one time. Like, you're never going to do one gig that's going to completely make or break you. Every single show that you do is just a building block to something else, to cultivate something that can be worthwhile to people. I'm doing a show this year that's about my grandfather. It's the first time I've ever done anything actually meaningful with stand-up, and it feels nice. And I don't know what I'm going to do next, because I don't think anything will ever feel this worthwhile. I'm really glad that I stuck it out for so many years in such a kind of, I guess, semi-narcissistic way, because it, like, standing up on stage and being like, I'm going to be the only one talking in this room for an hour is inherently quite narcissistic. And my why was, I want to be a comedian. It's nice to have a little bit more of a ostensibly noble why. Like, genuinely. My grandfather he is a wonderful human being who is going into his last years of life feeling like he didn't accomplish anything in his life. And that's wrong. And I don't know to what degree he'll understand that from my show. But I want him to know how wrong that is.
Has he seen it?
Not yet. And considering I've done it 50 plus times, it's like,
Yeah.
but he will.
Are you nervous about him seeing it? Because I suppose no.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, no.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't say anything to. I'm not doing.
Not that you would. Sorry, just to clarify. Not that you would say anything, but more that I guess you want him to feel that his life means something, right? Because you want to give him something with the show. And so, do you feel pressure in that sense?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
No. My grandfather is the most stubborn human being that I think has ever existed anywhere. And I'm sure a lot of people think and say that about their grandparents tend to get more stubborn, but he's like a nightmare. So I either will or I won't crack it, you know? I think I will, because in doing this show and trying to promote it and stuff, we've done fun things like, I did an interview with SBS Greek about the show, and the interviewer was so fascinated by my grandfather's story that he requested to interview him about his life.
He was a former goalkeeper.
He was.
That punched a referee. That's what I...
In a nutshell, yes. Basically, that's it. And so my papu sat down for an hour and a half at 86 years old with a relatively prominent Greek journalist and told his story, and they put it on SBS Greek, and I caught him sitting in his garage listening to his interview. And my grandmother told me that he was really happy afterwards.
I bet.
So if that's enough for him, great. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really beautiful place to leave this interview. So I just want to thank you so much for coming in. I'm really looking forward to seeing you do your stuff tonight.
Thanks, man. I really, really enjoyed this.
Did you enjoy that? Well, then why not subscribe? What's wrong with you? This is why people are worried about you, the choices you make. Click the little subscribe button and make people proud.